Hey Magento community, my name's Andrew Levine and I'm a front-end architect on Magento's PWA Studio project. I'm excited to give you a brief run-through of our first implementation of the layout modification mechanism in Magento's PWA Studio. This is functionality that will be used within PWA Studio to supplant the common Layout XML operations in Magento 2. The target audience for this tooling is anyone who will be authoring extensions for PWA Studio applications. When watching this content, I encourage you to keep in mind that this is the first implementation. This means that we'll gladly accept feedback, and we're happy to hear what else we can do to accommodate all your use cases. At the end of the video, I'll go over the best ways for you to provide feedback to us. Before we dive into any implementation details, let's walk through a quick demo to help provide some context. Here is a very simple React application that renders one component named MyCoolComponent. In a React application, and consequently in a PWA Studio application, the UI is driven by a component-oriented architecture. As an extension developer, to influence content rendered to the UI, you'll find it necessary to augment the component tree. Let's rebuild this small application, but this time we'll run it with the Magento Layout Loader enabled. Notice that we now have some additional content injected into the UI. This was injected by an extension using the Layout Loader, and we can verify that by inspecting the UI using React's in-browser development tools. If we inspect the wrapper for MyCool extension in React's DevTools, we can see useful information that our tooling has added to inform you of the reason that this extension was injected into the UI. Now, let's backtrack and go over some of the basic concepts you'll need to familiarize yourself with to write your own basic extension. The Magento Layout Loader has two distinct phases. The first phase, the authoring phase, is where a theme developer will annotate which parts of the UI should be available to extensions for modification. This is done using what we call a container component and a container child component. A container is similar to the concept of a container in Magento 2 today, and a container child is similar to a structural block. The second phase, the compile phase, is where the PWA Studio tooling collects all the layout operations registered by extensions, resolves any possible conflicts between them, and then applies them to the UI. This is done during compilation rather than at runtime to prevent your store from needing to overship code to a shopper's browser. When authoring an extension, a developer will be able to use a predefined set of operations that allows them to add content to the UI relative to other content, or remove content entirely from the UI. This will be much easier to explain by building a small extension, so let's jump right into it. Let's write a small extension that injects a new component into the UI relative to another component. The first thing we'll do is just create a simple React component. Notice that at this time there's nothing here that's Magento specific. The one other thing we'll want to do is create a configuration file that tells Magento's Layout Loader how our component should be injected. Let's say that we want to insert our component after another component in the UI. The first thing we'll need to say is which container we're targeting. So let's go look in our UI, and we'll say that this is the container that we want to target. And since we're doing insert after, we're saying within the target container MyCoolComponent wrapper, we want a target being next to another child. So we'll go back and expand this and find the ID of the child that we want to be inserted after. And the last thing we need to do is say what component we want to be injected. And now that we've written our extension, I'll go ahead and run our development server real quick. And we now have our new extension in the UI. And once again, we can go into React's developer tools and verify that that was injected. Before I let you go, I'd like to call out one more thing we've been focused on with our tooling: debuggability. We've received plenty of feedback about the cost of extension development, and one of our primary focuses has been to make development in PWA Studio more predictable and intuitive, but also easy to debug when things go wrong. To highlight this, let's modify our extension and cause it to misbehave a bit. We'll go ahead and save that real quick. And notice that now where our extension was showing before, we now have an admittedly ugly error that lets us know that we can look in the console for further information. And when we go to the console, we'll see React's normal debugging, but we'll also see additional debugging from the PWA Studio tooling. If we open that up, we'll see exactly which component was injected, why it was injected, and it gives us an opportunity to go and debug that further. And that's it for now. If you'd like to provide input on this feature or track its progress, please visit the PWA build pack repository within the Magento Research Organization on GitHub. There's plenty more work to be done, so don't be surprised if the API you've seen in this video continues to change as we dogfood it within our reference theme. Thanks for watching.